Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism. And here's a question for today. How are narcissistic workplaces and narcissistic families the same? And I don't just mean family businesses, I mean all kinds of workplaces. Let's muse on that for a minute. As always, I'm going to remind any of you who want to do that deeper dive into healing, please go to the video notes, hit on that link, and you can join our monthly healing program. Much deeper dive on healing that we can get into on YouTube. And also, I don't know, just if you'd listen to my new podcast, I'd love it. And I think it's great because it's such a different, fresh view on narcissism than what we can get into in this channel. So check out that link and you can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. But let's talk about narcissistic workplaces and narcissistic families because they're pretty damn similar. Okay, so let's think about a toxic workplace situation. You have a toxic colleague who is constantly filing grievances and threatening lawsuits, and everyone is so afraid of her that she kind of gets preferential treatment. She is so manipulative, and your boss is so slow-witted that he falls for her BS. You recognize that you will never be fully seen in this workplace, and there is zero opportunity for advancement. In fact, you are more likely to have had your ideas stolen or someone else is getting credit for them. Gossip in this workplace is normal, nobody cares anymore, and you recognize that the only reason you're kind of sticking around is for the health benefits. Now, if you were to switch that story up a little bit, turn the toxic colleague into a sibling, the boss into a parent, the not being seen in the workplace into the not being seen in a narcissistic family, and that your ambitions are thwarted or your aspirations mocked instead of your ideas being stolen. The family stabs each other in the back, and people show up and feel disconnected. But you stay because you don't want to be estranged from your family because that goes against what you believe and what you want to believe about families. No difference, right? So if you come from a narcissistic family, then I gotta tell you, it's really easy to get sucked into one of these toxic workplace systems simply because it's so familiar and you may not even connect it to the similarities to your family. If you come from a happy family, you may think that there must be ways to fix it. There's not really. So let's break down the 7 ways a narcissistic workplace and a narcissistic family are the same. Number 1 is triangulation. Triangulation is the unclear, unbalanced communication, gossip, people using other people in a system to communicate for them, that backstabbing way of being that often centralizes the power in the narcissistic boss, the parent, and keeps everyone on their back heel, never feeling safe. You may feel that anything you say ends up being used against you or is shared in an inappropriate way. Now, triangulation is a way for a toxic leader to hold power in a workplace by fomenting chaos. It works in organizations big and small, and it happens in every toxic family system. When there is triangulation, the puppet master, sort of the primary core narcissistic player, the one fostering and benefiting from the chaos, they stir it up because then they get to keep their power because everyone else is caught in a gossipy, messy mess. Number 2, let's think about those family roles. You remember the family roles: golden child, scapegoat, truth teller, the helper, personal assistant kind of child, the fixer child, the brainwashed child. You know which ones you are. Well, those roles are mirrored in the workplace. If you work in a toxic place, look around. There is a golden child who gets the perks and the promotions, the scapegoat who is overlooked and perhaps even verbally abused, the truth teller who gets it and typically quits, the helper who tries to make themselves invaluable and exhaust themselves in the process, and the fixer who is always trying to make everyone get along and just ends up being stuck in the triangulated chaos. And then, of course, the brainwashed person who thinks the toxic leader is great and often props up the golden child in that system. These roles, these family roles that we take from childhood and take into these other spaces, stop good people from getting advanced and have you witness fools getting awards and promotions. These roles can also keep people really stuck. The helper is so busy doing everyone else's work and not getting paid right for it that they run themselves into the ground. When these roles are in place, pay attention, and you may find yourself in the same role at work, especially in a toxic workplace, that you had in your family. In a healthy workplace, people don't have roles. They can be much more fluid. Number 3, the narcissistic leader holds control through manipulation. They say, so you're asking for more resources around here when things are tight. Now, this is despite that toxic leader getting a big bonus. And then they go on to say, I wonder, what is really your commitment to our clients and our community and our workplace family? You gotta love how toxic leaders always call workplaces community and family to shame you into doing more with less. When I was in those situations and people talked about the institutional family, I often thought, damn people, I already have my own difficult family. I don't need another one of those. But whatever their manipulation is, it is evocative of what a parent does, a toxic parent does. I guess you don't really care about us, or you think you're too good for us. Why can't you just put up and shut up? That kind of ethos. And with a sufficiently manipulated workforce, it works. And you find yourself doing more and more and more with less and less and less, and giving the best of yourself away, just like you did in your family. Number 4, you try to jump through hoops to please them. Narcissistic leaders in the workplace typically set up a system whereby people feel like they have to win over the leader. Like little performing seals, look what I did, look what I found, and the leader just laps it all up, with the workforce feeling that in order to keep the leader engaged, you always need to keep bringing bigger and better and even unrealistic stuff. And the leader thinks that their praise or some crappy plaque that they give you is enough, and you would prefer money or some other meaningful recognition. And they just keep putting more and money into their own damn pocket or using it towards their benefit, right? You can exhaust yourself trying to please the leader and lose sight of the fact that what you should be doing is thinking of the best interests of the institution or the mission of the institution and not the validation needs of the toxic leader. And that right there is the experience of every child with a narcissistic parent who just keeps rolling up and trying to please the parent, hopefully getting the parent to notice them, compliment them, and the parent takes in that validation but doesn't notice the child unless the child is living in the service of pleasing them. Number 5, you feel happy at work when you are noticed. The fawn response and the trauma bond, right? Now, all of us like to be noticed, but it's a little bit too happy, right? The narcissistic leader sets it up that their regard, their anointing, their praise is the sun and the moon above. Everyone likes praise, but the narcissistic leader is kind of paltry and chintzy with it, and they can be quite strategic and manipulative with it. It may be part of the triangulation in the workplace, with the praise being used as a tool to put a wedge between people. But because it's often inconsistent, like hitting a payout on a slot machine, when it happens, it feels wondrous. And that right there is the fawning response, the ecstasy of the good days in the narcissistic family, the day the narcissistic parent lifts their head long enough to notice you, the fantasy that you have a nice parent and nice family that all comes alive for a minute. They probably only noticed you because you did something that mattered to them, or convenienced them, or because something great just happened to them. and you had the timing of catching some of that fairy dust. Number 6, you justify the narcissistic leader's behavior. Justification is the core of the trauma-bonded, narcissistic, and toxic relationship, right? And we have all heard the justifications of toxic leaders. They're so visionary, they're a genius, they're a multi-billionaire, so they must have earned it, right? They built a submarine to the bottom of the sea, they're about to colonize Saturn, they have won every award, everything they touch turns to gold, so they have to be good, right? Meh. I don't know. These days, if you have a good idea, you're lucky and you're willing to break a few rules and hurt a few people, seems like you too could be a billionaire. But is that praiseworthy? It's subjective, whether it is or it isn't, but ultimately, their toxic behavior is repeatedly justified and excused on these so-called merits. It's the same thing in a narcissistic family, and it's more primal there. The child needs the parent to be good to survive, so they will justify the parent's behavior. They didn't mean it. Maybe I was being bad. They're tired. My dad is my hero. Instead of the far more terrifying and bleak alternative that they will never be up to the job of being a parent and be able to see you clearly. When you learn to justify toxic behavior as a child, it's a really tough habit to break in adulthood. And number 7, sometimes you just gotta go. I was raised on the belief, absolutely raised on it, that you never quit a job unless you have a new one. Now, I have to say it's a belief that served me well. I couldn't have afforded to have gone those times without being employed. So if that's the case, go find a new one now if you're working in a toxic place. I'm actually tired of talking about and listening to people talking about how to survive a toxic workplace. Life's too short, and the toxic people and their enablers and their flying monkeys tend to outlast the rest of us in these workplaces. So get out while the getting's good if you can. It may mean leaving a flashy company or a prestigious workplace, or sometimes even taking a slightly lower salary. But please put a dollar value on your sanity and your mental wellness. The longer you stay, the more deeply stuck you get. Those damn golden handcuffs, right? Toxic people and leaders do not change. Most people don't have the money or energy for anything bigger ticket like a long-term litigation to pursue damages from a workplace, and even if they do, the vast majority don't win. Sometimes leaving is the only path forward, and only you know if that's viable in your given situation. And this may be a multi-year plan where you have to plot out things like benefits, retirement clocks, becoming vested, financial needs. Do not do this impulsively. Do it thoughtfully. And it may even relieve some of the tension, knowing that you're quietly plotting your escape. And whether it's no contact, low contact, gray rock, yellow rock, whatever, sometimes distancing or even cutting off from a toxic family is the only healthy path forward. I recognize that familial estrangement is often looked upon with shame and stigma. What's wrong with them? They're not talking to each other, right? And it frustrates me when I see people talk about it this way as a tragedy every time. Sometimes for some folks it is redemption. It depends on your situation. But no, we cannot love, communicate, meditate, or mediate these situations to get better. Sometimes we have to save ourselves. So to those of you from toxic families who are starting to feel like Tuesday staff meetings feel like dysfunctional Thanksgiving dinners, you may be closer to the truth than you think. Thanks again.